Hey students, welcome to another Mr. Ness screencast. Today's aim is population control, and here are your objectives. Pause the video, look these questions over, and get ready to copy some vocab terms and take some notes. Population control is the attempt by a government to influence the birth rates of its citizens. This is extremely controversial, mainly because it means that the government is getting involved in areas that most people consider to be very private, like their bodies, or their sex lives, or their families. You've probably experienced this controversy in the form of today's abortion rights debates. The poster in the photograph, which shows an abortion rights protest in the 1970s, reflects this controversy. It says the state has no business in the wombs of the nation. So this woman feels that the state or the government should not be trying to control what she does with her body. We're going to look at a few different ways that governments try to control their population, and the first way is through what are called pronatalist policies. Pronatalist or expansive policies attempt to increase the birth rate. In other words, they try to get people to have more children. Pronatalism is used in countries with low birth rates and high elder dependency rates, because these countries lack young working age people. And as you saw in the previous lesson, a high elder dependency ratio can have adverse effects on a country's economy. So pronatalist policies are an attempt to address those effects. And one way that a government might increase birth rates is by restricting access to contraceptives or to abortion, perhaps by criminalizing them. Another more common approach is to give citizens some kind of financial incentive to have children. This could take the form of providing tax breaks for parents, cash bonuses for anyone who conceives a child, or paid parental leave, which means that parents can take time off work to raise kids without losing any money. Here's a map that shows different pronatalist policies that have recently been used in European countries to address the low birth rates and high elder dependency ratios in those countries. You can see that Norway has provided paid parental leave. Poland, Italy, and Spain have given parents a conception bonus, and France has provided tax breaks for large families. Now let's look at the opposite approach, antinatalist policies. These are actions that governments take to decrease birth rates. And we find these being used in countries that have high birth rates and high youth dependency. The most common example of antinatalism is providing increased access to birth control or abortions by making them affordable or free. Another common example is providing education to young people about family planning, like demonstrating how to use birth control or teaching people about the financial strains that having children can cause. A more controversial approach is penalizing people for having children. That was most famously done in China with the one-child policy, which you will learn more about in class. And an even more controversial method is promoting or even requiring sterilization, and I will tell you what that means in just a moment. Here are some pictures of government propaganda supporting antinatalism. This advertisement from India is a form of family planning education that reminds citizens that a, quote, small family is a happy family. And this poster from China in the 1970s encourages families to have just one child. Now let's look at sterilization. Sterilization is a surgical procedure that results in permanent infertility. For women, sterilization is called tubal ligation, and it involves cutting and tying the fallopian tube so that the eggs cannot reach the uterus and be fertilized. And for men, sterilization is called a vasectomy, and it involves blocking the pathway that sperm travels from the scrotum to the penis. When promoted by the government, sterilization is considered antinatalist because it leads to permanent infertility. which means that men or women who have been sterilized can no longer have children. And you will look at some issues with sterilization in class. The last term today is eugenics, the movement to encourage certain genetic traits in a population and discourage others. In other words, eugenics tries to get certain groups of people, those that have so-called good genes, to have more children, and tries to get other groups of people that have the bad genes to have fewer children. Eugenics is therefore both pronatalist and antinatalist, depending on who is being encouraged to have children and who is being discouraged from doing so. Eugenics is really controversial because it is historically linked to racist ideas about which genes are better than others. And you will look more at this topic as well in class. All right, it's time to review the objectives. If you don't know the answer to any of them, rewind the video and look again. I will see you in class. Bye, students.